AMG-badged C-Classes have traditionally been defined by oversized engines in the front, loud noises, and a penchant for uncouth driving dynamics that adds a lot of fun to an otherwise conservative little car. Times are changing though, and V8s and even to a degree V6s are going the way of the dodo, and premium dollars are going towards things like hybrids and electric cars, which is where this new C43 comes in. It's only got 4 cylinders and a whole bunch of electric features, but can it possibly live up to the promise of that AMG badge? We're going to find out, but before we do, remember to check out the full written review over at carsguide.com.au.
Normal versions of the new generation C-Class have taken a big price jump over the previous generation cars, and we expect the new AMG C43 will be no different, especially since there's a fair bit more AMG in the new car. For reference, the outgoing C43 costs at least $113,000 before on-road costs. Stay tuned for more accurate pricing on the new one at carsguide.com.au closer to its arrival in Australia in the first half of 2023. For this launch review, we've seen and driven the sedan, but sadly, Australia won't be getting the great-looking station wagon, and there's no word yet on replacements for the drop-top or coupe versions, older versions of which are still on sale. Of course, this particular segment is quite heated, with the C43's competition including the Alfa Romeo Giulia, BMW M340i, Audi RS4, and even a newcomer like the Genesis G70. To fill the top performance tier for this segment though, a successor to the C63 is also on the way, which controversially is said to also employ a 4-cylinder engine. In a way then, this C43 is our first look at AMG's more cylinder-restricted future. Features-wise, the local specification for the C43 is yet to be locked in, but you can expect standard items to include rear axle steering, adaptive dampers, sports exhaust and brakes, wheels of at least 18 inches, but we'd expect at least 19s for the Australian market, synthetic leather interior trim with full electrical adjust for the front bucket seats, red interior highlight trims, LED headlights, and a huge MBUX portrait-oriented touchscreen with all the standard phone connectivity and built-in navigation you would expect, alongside a digital instrument cluster.
Over the last few iterations, the C-Class has become closer and closer in its styling to its larger S-Class and E-Class siblings. In fact, this C-Class is the biggest one ever built, and it doesn't really look like a small car anymore. So what's AMG done to work with this new C-Class formula to make it more interesting? Let's take a look.
It's both lower and angrier, sporting the signature AMG grille and big alloy wheels, but otherwise is pared back with slightly more aggressive aerodynamic bumpers front and rear, dual exhaust ports, and a little lip spoiler atop the boot. It might not be fully aggro enough for some, but I like the way it maintains the elegant lines of the C-Class on which it's based.
Inside the new C-Class is tech galore. There's this new massive portrait-oriented screen which is slightly tilted towards the driver. It also houses those new climate functions as well, so all of those have been moved into the touchscreen. You may or may not like that, and there's an extra touch panel below, and this car gets an AMG-specific shortcut button as well. There's also the massive driver display, which I really like. It has a lot of customization, but a lot of getting used to as well when it comes to fiddling with all these touch controls on the wheel. The wheel too deserves a special mention because it does look really cool with all those touch panels on these 4 stalks that stick out of it and these new little screens that are specific to AMG models. It all looks really neat, but if you don't like touch functions, you might not love it. When it comes to practicality in the cabin, I feel pretty good in here. I feel like I've got decent room for my knees, I've got decent room for my head, and adjustability is all electric as well, which is kind of neat, even for the wheel. I will say there is one small area where this big transmission tunnel sort of cuts into your knee room a little bit, and it does feel like a missed opportunity to put a soft panel there. Instead, there's just a little bit of hard plastic, which is a bit of a shame in a luxury car. When it comes to storage, you've got plenty as well. There's a large bottle holder in the door here with a bin as well, and there's also another set of 2 with adjustable sides in the center here, a wireless phone charger, and a flip open console box, which isn't too deep but does house 2 more USB-C ports as well as the 2 that are down there as well. Pretty neat. Let's go have a look in the back seat. Now you really do feel the extra dimensions of the new C-Class in the back seat. I feel like I've got plenty of room back here, and it's really nice to see even from this go fast version. That's behind my own driving position, and as you can see, I've got quite a bit of knee room here, quite a bit of headroom, and I feel like I've got a comfortable place to put my feet too. There's even quad zone climate control with 2 adjustable air vents and USB-C ports underneath as well. When it comes to bottle holders, you've got the same cladding basically in this rear door as you do in the front door, and that means that there are 2 spaces where I can fit my test bottle here. I gotta say, this place is pretty impressive.
The C43 maintains the same 455-litre boot capacity as the rest of the C-Class range, which isn't too bad for a sedan in this segment, and has a larger opening than before thanks to the split taillight design. The new 2-litre 4-cylinder engine at the heart of the C43 promises to offer a performance solution with fewer emissions and less fuel consumption than its predecessor. Producing 300 kilowatts and 500 newton meters though, it's not as though you're missing out on much. In fact, it produces slightly more power and only slightly less torque than the outgoing 3-litre 6-cylinder it replaces. It even sprints to 100 kilometers 0.1 of a second faster. Using a new mild hybrid 48-volt system, the engine has an electrically assisted turbocharger with a motor inside which is designed to eliminate lag, as well as a powered starter generator which can add a further 10 kilowatts under certain situations. The brand employs a 9-speed planetary-style transmission, but the AMG version swaps the standard torque converter out for a wet clutch designed to trim shift times even further. Drive is sent to all 4 wheels via the brand's 4MATIC Plus all-wheel drive system, and it even has rear axle steering. A little bit more on that later. Not only is the new C43 slightly quicker on the numbers than its 6-cylinder predecessor, but it also trims fuel consumption down slightly to around 8.7 litres to 100 kilometres. That's at least half a litre less than the 6. As usual with these style performance engines, expect it to require top-shelf 98 RON fuel.
Okay, so driving the C43, and you notice that it is quite a different car from the ones that have come before it. And our first drive here is indicative only because we are driving in Europe on European roads in a European specified car, but the car is nearly identical to what we should get in Australia, so it's a pretty good indication, even though the road conditions here seem to be quite a bit better than they are back home. First thing you notice, you sit in a really nice low sporty seating position. The dash is quite high, it feels tough in here with this big chunky steering wheel, and the power bulges across the bonnet, which are even there on the C300 as well. So it's a tough feeling car, which is a good start. The steering as well is just packed full of feel. You notice it straight away. This car is really reactive, and it's got lots of feel for the road fed back through the steering, which is nice as well. And with the great steering comes great handling as well. This car does feel like it grips the road really well. It does have an all-wheel drive system, although it is significantly rear biased, but despite that, it does feel like it holds onto those corners really nicely, which is what you want from a car like this. It does also have that all-wheel steer system, although I will say the effect once you're up in the corners is quite subtle. It doesn't have that really strange feeling where you lose the idea of what the wheels are doing at any given time. You can still feel how much traction is being held on there, which is really nice. It does just feel like it helps a little bit in the corners, which is what these systems should really do. It is really rapid as well. It doesn't have that kind of explosive, raucous energy that the big 6s and 8s that came before this engine have, but it's also not raspy and poppy like the A45 can be, which is really interesting. This car has very much its own personality when it comes to the engine note. It's something that is completely different from things we've experienced before in fast C-classes. Now, one of the other things that AMG tweaked when it came to that turbocharger system is they've made it do certain things with the motor inside. So now when you let off the accelerator, like when you're coming down to brake for a corner and then you immediately hop back on again, the turbocharger will stay at the same speed that it was at before, again removing that lag. It's really quite cool. It doesn't feel like other fast 4-cyls I've driven before, which is unexpected. It is quite a different car. This does feel like new technology at play. I like it really quite a lot. Now I expect the ride to be quite hard. Today it's been quite forgiving, but we are on European roads. There are massive 20-inch wheels on the car that we're testing. In Europe, those are the top spec optional wheels, but I expect they will be standard on Australian cars. The roads around here, as I said, are really good. It's only when we hit an abrupt bump that I can kind of feel that firmness that I really expected from this car. But that having been said, because the roads are so good around here, it is really hard to tell what the experience will be like driving around Sydney or Melbourne or something in this car. The adjustable ride settings seem to help a little bit. We're in a comfort mode now. The sport mode does noticeably firm things up when it comes to both the steering and the ride, so that's worth noting as well. There is a bit of versatility to the way you can set this car up with those electrified suspension and steering modes, which is nice. But there is a little bit of a downside here too. That transmission, it's a 9-speed automatic transmission, and it now has a new kind of wet clutch system at the front, so AMG tells us. I do feel like while you can set it up to be quite a comfortable car in terms of its steering and ride if you're driving around town, that transmission is at its worst when you're driving around town. It's not as bad as we've experienced in things like dual clutch transmissions before, but it does have a bit of a jerkiness when you're stopping and starting in traffic, or even when you're at kind of a medium pace, you're kind of going that kind of 50, 60, 70 kilometers an hour and you let off a little bit and then you hop back on. There can be a little bit of a half-second lag or a bit of a shunt from the transmission in there as well, which is something I didn't expect to see. I thought this would act more like a torque converter, but in some ways it does have a little bit of a clutch action feel. When you do gather a little bit of speed though, that transmission is really smooth. It snaps through the gears just instantaneously. It seems to have almost as much speed as a dual clutch when it comes to just swapping those cogs, so that's really good too. When you're really having fun in this car, it's not like those things intrude on the experience, so really, really good. Okay, so where does that leave our C43? So I think this is a really interesting high-tech solution and a fascinating entrant in this kind of fast sedan segment. It might not have what people are expecting when it comes to this car's predecessors, the big engines, the raucous exhaust notes, and it might not be what some people are expecting either when they look at the spec sheet. They might look at it and think, okay, well, this is going to be all raspy and poppy like an A45, but it's got a more mature character than that, which caught me off guard. And the items in this car which I expected to dislike the most, like that four-wheel steering system, they are quite subtle and only serve to enhance the experience. So really, I quite enjoyed it. It's just a significantly different car from what came before, so be prepared for that.
The final list of safety equipment has not yet been locked in for the Australian market for the C43, but we're told to expect Australian delivered cars to have a similar spec to the current C300. This would include auto emergency braking up until freeway speed, as well as active items for lane assist, cruise control and blind spots. The new C-Class has an impressive suite of 10 airbags. You can read more about this topic at the full review at carsguide.com.au. The standard C-Class range was awarded a maximum 5-star ANCAP safety rating in 2022. Mercedes-Benz in Australia currently offers a 5-year and unlimited kilometre warranty, something which is spreading to its luxury peers. We don't know what the local servicing schedule will set you back just yet, but expect it to be the most affordable when purchased as a prepaid pack within the first year of ownership.
More refined, slightly electrified, and more tech-heavy than ever too, the new C43 makes up for its lack of cylinders with its newfound sophistication. Even though it feels to me like it earns that AMG badge, it remains to be seen whether the appeal of a falterback is in those big engines of its past. I can't wait to see how people respond to it when it arrives in Australia.